And since Europe cannot compete at cost but has to compete at the value, I would like to just reflect on a couple of points. Many things have been said this morning and throughout the day, and I will just reflect also through that on Croatia and also what our institution is doing. Obviously, we are all facing, as we saw this morning, softening external demand, manufacturing pressure, particularly from China, where 25% of the manufacturing output is coming these days. Put it together more than, or in terms of exports, more than US and Germany combined. And then we have obviously impact on demographic change. We all can see it in Croatia in the numbers, not only declining numbers, but also in particular in terms of the aging of the population. Irrespective of that, as Prime Minister mentioned this morning, Croatia, Czech Republic, Poland, and Lithuania, they have been performing much better than some of the other emerging markets in Europe, thanks to obviously real wage growth, which has its own flip side, but we'll leave that for a moment. Obviously, there has been investment also rebound and a stronger domestic demand. But this brings me basically to the point of your panel, which is what reforms are needed. And I think there are plenty of things that has been done well in terms of the economic integration. Obviously, somebody said this morning it was within hard and rock place between China and US. This is inevitable, and I think this is probably happening, but slower than it should be. And same goes for the energy transition, given everything what is happening with the current conflict in Ukraine. So, having said that, I think for us it's really about going further into the streamlining the administration. We still have EU countries which have different rules, different bankruptcies, procedures, etc., and let alone capital markets. I'm mentioning capital markets because these are particularly Central and Southeast European countries are very much bank-centric, and with all due respect to the banking sector, which is important, you cannot have innovation and R&D in particular. Just one data, I think US is more than 270 billion euro investments in R&D, more than Europe together. So that tells you all in terms of the new technologies and advancements, and I think only which one is standing out is actually Swiss. So I think capital markets is number one. SOE is very much still dominant in public sector, particularly in our region, and including Croatia. I think this is where efficiencies and improvements in the governance, and this is one of the enablers that in our strategy is really to help advanced countries such as Croatia. And capital markets, as I said, we are working together, and this is a really daunting challenge, having 8 regional stock exchanges to become maybe one common investment spot. Let's see whether we will manage. There is strong commitment also by Croatian government. I would like to applaud them for that, in particular Ministry of Finance, EBRD, regional stock exchanges, but it's not only about Croatia, it's joint effort by Poland, Romania, and 8 countries. I'm sorry for not mentioning all of them, but they know. And I think that's really something which is go hands in hand with this savings and investment union, because this is, if you want to have venture capital, if you want to have scaling up of the new technologies, this is number one to have. Poland, Warsaw Stock Exchange, is big enough on its own. I'm not talking about Frankfurt or London in particular, but then we are like, and Bucharest has been more alive, including Zagreb, but I think this is something to be worked on. The demographic challenge is very important, and if somebody saw our transition report, which just was published, the change in demographics, Croatia has 22% plus, and it goes pretty much for all the countries above 60 plus. This is very costly, but this is also impacting the availability of the labor force, and that can shave off 0.36 based on economists from the GDP through 250. And I think to respond to that, you have to have targeted immigration, but nobody can afford a 1% net immigration flow. I think other things have to be done in terms of the really working on the skilling of the people, working on the childcare, working on the institutions, but targeted immigration, but more importantly, ANI, the new technologies and digitalization in order to improve the productivity. And then that brings me, before I conclude, we can go more granular into the next stage, what financial instruments, obviously public financing are under strain. We saw Germany as the biggest economy. What is now happening, that public spending are going up, investments are going down, and the fiscal deficits are widening. So you cannot afford any longer without mobilizing private sector and private resources, if you want to do accelerated digitalization, innovation, energy transition, not only energy transition, energy dependence in terms of new technologies. These days we have in Europe energy 2-3 times more expensive than US. Industrial upgrading, as I said at the beginning, EU cannot compete at the cost. It has to compete on technology, reliability, because we are where we are in terms of the logistics, and adding value. So, and I will pause here. These are just food for thoughts. We can go more granular in the next round in terms of some of the data and what is really prompting. And I think this is the last call. We heard this morning some of the potential solutions, but I think that they have to be really multidisciplinary and multi-sector and in much more coordinated manner than what they are today.